Producing 4K content for my YouTube channel has meant that I've started running out of storage on my Synology NAS pretty quickly. So I've got to come up with a solution. I've got a couple of options. Do I go for full price drives, or do I go for refurbished drives at a fraction of the cost, but potentially have got problems further down the line? Hey everyone, and welcome to a new video on Bite of Geek. So the age-old problem for those of us who are still using spinning hard drives, do you pay extortionate costs for the large capacity drives, or do you buy a refurbished? So just a little bit of background. I've got a Synology DS920 Plus NAS, which has got two 4 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf NAS drives in it, and it's also got two Western Digital drives, they're 6 terabytes each. So, you know, as bare drives, a total capacity of 20 terabytes. But obviously, with it being in a RAID configuration, one of those drives is taken up. So I actually end up with significantly less than that. Now, the Western Digital drives are shucked from external enclosures. So, you know, I did a video on the channel a long time ago about that, and I can hear all the comments now. Different capacity drives, different manufacturers' drives. You know, the Western Digital ones won't be for a NAS and all that kind of stuff. However, these drives have all been in operation now for probably just over 3 years, and you know, as I say, with the changeover that I've done on the channel a while ago to producing 4K content, storage requirements have ramped up significantly. You know, an average kind of like 10-15 minute video that you see on the channel actually is an awful lot more in terms of content, and those file sizes are absolutely massive when you switch to 4K content. Now, when looking at kind of like expanding my capacity, you know, to be able to store all this content, there's kind of like a few options that I've looked at. So the DS920 Plus, you can add on a Synology expansion unit that uses the eSATA port on the rear of the NAS. There's pros and cons to that. You know, if you're interested on that, you know, there's plenty of articles online about that. Let alone the cost of the expansion unit itself. It can be almost kind of like, if not more than the original cost of the NAS unit. So, you know, that was one option. Next option was to buy a whole new NAS and, you know, add additional drives. So put my original drives in and add some additional drives to that. So, you know, that NAS obviously would have more bays to it, so that would get around the potential problems of you know, adding on an extension unit to the NAS. And the third option was to buy bigger drives and transfer all of my existing content onto those into the NAS, and that was the route that I chose to take. Now, over the last number of years, when I've been buying hard drives, one of the things that I've done is I've tended to go and refer to the stats published by Backblaze. Now, if you don't know who Backblaze are, they are a large you know, data center cloud storage provider, and obviously they use all kinds of manufacturers' hard drives, in the tens of thousands of them, and you know, who better to kind of know what drives, you know, whether that's different iterations of them, different capacities, or ones from different manufacturers, which ones actually perform the best over the longest period of time. So looking at their stats, kind of the two kind of models that really jumped out at me, one from Seagate, which was the 16 terabyte Exos drives, and also there's some HGST drives as well, but they were primarily 12 terabyte, and obviously I wanted to get as much storage as possible. Now, one of the things about the Seagate Exos drives was they Backblaze had over 27,000 of those that they'd recorded stats for in terms of activity and failure rates on those. So I felt that that was probably a good option to go for. So a quick check on Amazon to see what kind of price I'd be looking at for those hard drives, and I'm not a big channel, and that was certainly a big cost. So I started Googling and looking into people's opinions on refurbished or renewed. The phrase kind of seems to be interchangeable. Seemed to spend days looking at articles on Reddit, and I think it came down basically to a number of points with regards to these types of drives. So first of all, surprisingly, a number of people seem to use refurbished drives, probably more than I was expecting, actually. Certainly within a home environment, it seems to be quite a popular thing to go and do, primarily to save cost, I suppose. Really, a lot of people said, don't put precious data onto them. So, family photos, important documents, all that kind of stuff. Put those somewhere else. And if you've got that kind of content on your drives, then absolutely make sure you're doing backups. I mean, you should be doing backups anyway if you've got a NAS. And a NAS isn't just your ultimate storage solution. It isn't going to be the thing that saves you. It'll be the backup that saves you when the NAS fails. I think one of the other things is that new drives, and a lot of people seem to forget this, new drives can actually fail just as quickly as refurbished drives. In fact, Backblaze do actually have in their stats, for all of the models, you can download the data and you can see the failure rate of new drives. You could get a new drive, plug it in first day, and it could fail there and then. So don't always assume that new drives are going to be way more reliable than refurbished drives. And I think the final point really that kind of stood out was that if you are going to buy refurbished drives, then make sure you test them thoroughly before you put them into your NAS. Now, Amazon do sell refurbished or renewed drives from a number of different sellers, including themselves. Reviews are a bit middling. There's nothing really outstanding 5-star type of stuff. I think what you've got with Amazon is obviously if it fails, you can return it under the renewed program. But you're going to chance it with any seller really that's selling these kinds of drives. If you're in the United States, then there's a company called Server Part Deals, and they sell a lot of drives at really good prices as well. But getting them shipped to the UK can be expensive. You've got customs, taxes and all that kind of stuff to think about as well, so it doesn't always work out to be a viable solution if you're this side of the pond, as it were. Now, a lot of people also mentioned kind of like looking at drives on eBay. Now, I think the big caveat here was not just getting a drive from somebody who's 1 minute selling a PlayStation 5 and then the next minute selling a television, and then they're selling a hard drive. You're probably going to have problems there. But looking at sellers, businesses that their primary listings are all hard drives. That is all they do. That's all they sell day in, day out. And I stumbled across a particular seller. They had good reviews for the drives that they were selling. So I decided to give them a shot and found this in one of their listings. So this seller was offering drives in as new condition and pulled from desktops, which fine for maybe kind of like the lower capacity ones. I doubt that is the case for the higher capacity drives. And they were selling them at a pretty decent price. If you think what that was going to be, comment down below. Have a guess at what I might have paid for 16 terabyte drives. Now, anybody who has bought hard drives off of Amazon will know it can be a little bit touch and go as to how your drives get delivered. Sometimes they're just in kind of like a bag. Sometimes they are in proper packaging for hard drives. And I was keen to understand how the seller was going to ship these out. So, I fired off a few questions around that, and they came back, with answers, the warranty, all that kind of stuff. They could supply the drives, 7200 RPM drives, and that's what I opted for. So I bought 4 of those and sat back and waited for them to arrive. So after a few days, the drives arrived, all in a big box full of packing peanuts, and each drive was in its own individual box. So not too bad a start. They were relatively well protected from that point of view. I opened the first box and I got a Seagate Exos 16 terabyte drive, all nicely sealed in a anti-static bag. And, this looked really promising. I think if all the drives are going to be like this, then it would be a pretty good outcome, I would say. But then I noticed it had a manufacturing date of almost 4 years ago. And that's not really going to be a new drive. New drives can be 6 months old or something like that before you get it, but it's unlikely that it's going to be 4 years old. And I doubt that was a brand new drive. So I opened up the next box and it was another Exos 16 terabyte drive, so really good from that point of view. Unfortunately, again, another one that had a roughly 4 year ago manufacturing date. So these are probably unlikely to have been sat on a shelf anywhere waiting to go into a server, I would have thought. So onto the third drive, and that was a bit unexpected. A Water Panther drive, a brand I have never ever heard of before. Now, a bit of digging around about this, and they seem to be rebadged, refurbished drives. Interesting comments about it. Stay well away from it. But basically, somebody on Reddit, a user on Reddit, they did a lot of investigation around this, and it would seem that these, the company address for this is the same address as server part deals, and the assumption is that these are relabeled drives from them. So looking at the details of it, kind of like the layout and various other attributes on the drive, various little stickers and things like that, they actually look to be relabeled Seagate Exos 16 terabyte drives. So I'm not bothered what the sticker is on the front. It could say Seagate, it could say Water Panther, but fundamentally, they are the same drive. And then onto the fourth drive, and you may well have already gone and guessed. Yes, it was another Water Panther drive. So that was 2 Exos 16 terabytes and then 2 Water Panther, which effectively were Exos 16 terabyte drives anyway. So not too bad. Now, I wasn't just going to go and put these drives into my Synology NAS. I have an old Dell server, and I've got UNRAID on that. And, so I decided to put the drives in and get them all started up on UNRAID. I'd read that it was a good idea to go and pre-clear the disks using UNRAID, really to kind of test them out and make sure they were good enough before they were actually being put to use in a server. And a lot of people were saying that it would take about 24 hours to go and do this for each of the drives. So obviously having 4 of them all running at the same time, it would probably take a little bit longer than that, but not a huge amount of time to make sure that they were all okay. So I started it all up, and as part of that process, it shows you the current smart information. And what do you know? It actually, I doubt it actually had no smart information on there prior to being refurbished. So I think that's actually been wiped. One of the drives had, I think it was kind of like 1 hour's worth of on time. And this is, when you get refurbished drives, this is quite common to go and do that. Some companies that sell refurbished drives, renew drives, they don't do that. So you can actually see that the drive's been constantly on for like 30,000 hours or something like that. You'll also see any kind of failures elsewhere on the drive. If they've got them all, realistically they shouldn't really be selling those. It's more the power on time and the number of times it's been powered on and off really that you're interested in. Anyway, I left UNRAID clearing the drives and came back 24 hours later, and it had completed stage 1. Yes, stage 1 of 6 stages to go through. And well, if they were all going to take 24 hours, this was going to be an awful long time to find out whether these drives were actually any good or not. So, I didn't really have any choice. So I just left it running, and sure enough, 24 hours later, stage 2 had completed. It's a pretty intensive process, this. The drives are being put through their paces here, and you see the CPU on this, it's a Xeon processor, and it's really getting stretched as it's clearing these drives. You could do this via another route. There are kind of utilities you can download for Windows, but I think it's fair to say what UNRAID puts the drives through is if there's going to be a fault on the drive, this is probably going to find it before you get to use the drives. Now, when it had finally finished, one of the other suggestions that I had seen as another indicator as to whether a drive is potentially failing was to use a speed check on the drive. And this is kind of like one of the app plugins that you can get for UNRAID. And basically, if your drive is really kind of like the performance is really tailing off, then you probably want to get rid of that drive. So I ran that against all 4 drives, and as you can see in the graph here, it's pretty good. They are all within kind of like the same performance of each other. There is one which has got slightly better performance, but you're kind of expecting that really with drives. They're not all identical, but there's nothing there that you've got a sudden drop off in performance on one particular drive. So once I'd had UNRAID do what it needed to do, the next step was to put these drives into my Synology NAS. Now, because I had 4 drives in the NAS already, this wasn't a straightforward process. However, some of the stuff that I'd read up on suggested that a data scrub was a good starting point to make sure that I wasn't going to be putting effectively corrupted data onto the new drive. So yes, you guessed it, that's quite a lengthy process as well. So once that completed, I went about replacing the drives one by one. You can't just go and take the multiple drives out. You've got to effectively maintain the RAID array within the NAS. So starting with the lowest capacity drives first, so that was one of the Seagate Iron Wolf drives. Took one of those out, put in one of the new 16 terabyte drives, and when you do that, when you add the drive in, the Synology NAS will complain about your your volume, that it's basically it's unstable and it needs to repair it. And well, yeah, you guessed it, that takes a long time as well. And basically it's just a case of rinse and repeating. So take out another 4 terabyte drive, put in a 16 terabyte drive, take out the 6 terabyte drive and put in a 16 terabyte. Except when you get to the 3rd drive, there's something seems to happen because of the nature of the RAID process. And I've read an article around this. Basically it starts to slow down. So this whole process was getting longer and longer as I was working my way through all the different drives. However, at the end of it, I managed to get all 4 drives into the Synology NAS. All the data was intact. And quite a successful process, if not a long process to go through. So these drives have been in use in my NAS now for just over a month, and I've not had any issues. I've run smart reports on them and everything was showing fine. These are enterprise drives, so even though they've been in use probably for 3 to 4 years, I think there's still plenty of life left in them. So how much did I pay for these drives then? Well, I paid £140 each, which is just about £9 per terabyte, which I don't think is too bad. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about that. Obviously different brands will be different prices in the marketplace, but for these particular drives, I think that's not too bad for what I've got. So what about you? Are you thinking about buying refurbished drives? Do you currently use them, or do you always go for new drives? Let me know down below in the comments. If you've got refurbished drives, what's your experience been of using those? But if you've enjoyed the video, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. Okay, so 2 months in and one of the drives has already started to fail. It is in fact the Seagate Exos 16 terabytes, so the originally branded one, and UNRAID has picked that up as part of a data transfer that I was doing. There was a number of errors that were starting to increase, so that drive has been taken out, and the seller's been contacted and they're going to replace that drive for me, so that's gone back to them. So yeah, not always what you think it's going to be.